Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events and updates that took place during the previous night. Mainly we're going to talk about the details and updates that we received about the situation offensive operation during the previous days. And first we're going to start with Kherson area, and today the Russian published the video how they destroyed the radio station RLS P18 on the Ukrainian bank of Dnipro River. This radar the Ukrainians were using to discover and to support the Ukrainian counter-artillery duels and to support Ukrainian air defense forces and air forces as well. This video is geolocated. Now we're moving further to the Orikhiv bridgehead, to Bradley Square. The Ukrainians and the Russians published videos about the Russian artillery or drone or maybe even Lancet attack, and as a result of those attacks, that attack, the Ukrainians lost artillery system AS-90 in the vicinity of on the north of Orikhiv. In this video we see like the place of explosion and light truck that arrived to this area, probably for some evacuation purposes or maybe just to investigate and to analyze the consequences of that attack. And we got the same video from the same area, but from the Ukrainian side we see this truck, we see the soldier who was checking the the crater of that attack and the parts and what left after from IS-90 artillery system. Now we are moving further and we are going to talk about Robotine, about the battle of this settlement. As you can see, I have already updated the map, and currently I have colored the, to be more precise, I removed the color and the red cloud from these fields. According to the previous version of this map, this area was under Russian control. We remember that during the previous days, the Ukrainians were fighting when launched offensive operation for the first defense belt of Russian forces on the north of Robotine, and some sources were saying that Ukrainians managed to capture this bridgehead. Later we got updates that Ukrainians not just entered, but they continue further to the south in direction of Robotine itself, and according to information we had, the fierce fightings were for these fortifications, for this defense line. And a little bit later we got update that the Russians managed to pin down and to defeat the Ukrainians and to force them to step back. But today we got the first confirmation that Ukrainians did have some results and some success on this bridgehead, and there is a video of that. Basically this video is geolocated. This video is dated on the 3rd of July, so that means yesterday's very fresh one. As you can see on this video, we see the black dots. It's Ukrainian soldiers who were moving from the south in direction of the northern yellow line, yellow defense belt. For now it's very difficult to understand what exactly whether it was the retreating process of the Ukrainian forces who were defeated on the north of Robotine, or that was some kind of rotation process. Let's say after a successful offensive and storming operation, the first storming waves got in order to step back, and they were replaced by the fresh Ukrainian forces. Very difficult to understand, but the only thing that we can tell, the facts we can say, is that Ukrainians were moving from the south in direction of the north, at least that particular squad. That means that Ukrainians did establish control over this bridgehead during the previous days, and basically during the previous days there were clashes between Ukrainians and the Russians, at least even in this side of Robotine, and basically the battle of Robotine has already started. Today the Russians one more time confirmed that they managed to defeat the Ukrainians, that they were forced to step back, but basically the facts says a little bit different situation. We need to wait a little bit more, and if the updates about the battle of Robotine ends, then we can say that the battle of Robotine has ended and the Russians managed to restore their positions. But currently we see that Ukrainians still controls the yellow lines in this territory and got as close as possible to this settlement. And basically we can say and announce that the battle of Robotine between Russian forces and Ukrainian forces has started. Currently the Ukrainians don't have possibilities, as I understand, to get armored vehicles very close to the combat line, and mainly they're trying to use just the infantry platoons, a significant number, very big number of infantry platoons that attacks the Russian positions from many sides. And This is one more time, this is a very important bridgehead for the Ukrainians. This Robotine for many reasons. The first one is that this settlement is located on the hill, and the second one is the most important one, is that this is first of all a settlement. There are buildings, there are like line of trenches, there are places where the Ukrainians can hide munitions, some headquarters, more forces. There are a lot of trenches around this settlement. Anyway, if the Ukrainians want to continue developing their offensive operation, they need some base, they need some center, they need some area where they can move a lot of vehicles, munitions, ammo depots, let's say hospitals and so on. And basically the Ukrainians take a decision to use this settlement for these purposes. So we'll see what is going to be next today. Now we are moving to Vremevka tactical bridgehead. We got just one video, geolocated video, and the Ukrainians published the video how they managed to discover the Russian positions inside of the settlement Priutine. This is like a mobile, light mobile mortar position that the Russians were using, and the Ukrainians using drone managed to discover those mortar positions, and after that they start bombing and shelling this area, and probably as a result of the attack the Ukrainians at least as minimum forced the Russians to change their positions. From another side, we see that this video confirms that Priutine is still under Russian control, and that the Russians have a very, let's say, strong control over the settlement, and that the Ukrainians still very far from these positions. And now we are moving further to Marinka and Avdiivka. There were no updates from the settlements. There was just one video from Marinka, but nothing new. The Russian tanks were moving on the northern part, trying to attack the Russian-Ukrainian positions. There were no gainings, just the confirmation of the current status of the front line. When talking about Avdiivka, there were no changes after fierce fightings. The two parties took decision for regrouping, and now we are moving to Artyomovsk. We got one interesting piece of news from this bridgehead. The head of Ukrainian infantry army Syrsky yesterday on the 3rd of July reported that he need more reinforcement, he need more reserves, he need better weapon, he need Western weapon. And the thing is that we know that Ukrainians currently are storming the Russian positions in the vicinity of Klishchievka and Kurdyumovka, where they managed to got some advances during the previous days, but he was asking for help not for this bridgehead. The head of Ukrainian infantry army Syrsky reported that there is a very high chances that the Russians very soon will launch their own offensive operation in direction of Chasov Yar. And basically we understand his words, because we discussed on the channel that during the previous days the Russians made a lot of attempts to attack the Ukrainian positions in the vicinity between Grigorovka and Bogdanovka, and some sources were saying that the Russians even managed to develop their bridgehead, and it's not a very big distance between the channel and the Russian positions. And basically, of course, the Russians need to take control over the channel, and the reason of that is, as we discussed, there are around 180,000 soldiers on this bridgehead, starting from Artyomovsk to Kupiansk, and around 50,000 in the vicinity of Artyomovsk. And of course the Russians still don't have possibility to use these 50,000 soldiers somewhere else. Let's say the Russians can't use these forces to start offensive operation in direction of Siversk from the south. The Russians currently attack in Kreminna, in Belogorovka and Zlatarivka, and of course it would be very nice if the Russians can launch support operation from the south, but currently they can do this because their, let's say, western flank is not secured, and to secure the flank they need to establish control over the channel. To establish control over the channel they need to launch offensive operation. Everything is very easy and very simple, and that's it. Now we're moving further to Kreminna forest. The Russians published very interesting video of Battle of Kreminna. Currently on this video we won't see the clashes, explosions and so on. This video just did show us the results of battles during the previous days. As you can see, most of the trees were destroyed, and there are no even like living dot in this area. Everything was under fire. Very fierce fightings, as you can see. Currently this is the only area where both sides, either the Russians and the Ukrainians, are trying to attack each other. Now we are moving to the main Ukraine, and we're going to talk about the head of Ukraine army, Valery Zaluzhny. Recently, yesterday to be precise, he visited the Rovno nuclear power plant, and there was a video about that. And during this video, he was walking on the Rovno nuclear power plant. He was asking questions. He was talking with authorities of that power plant, with the scientists, and so on. Of course, we haven't received the details of those conversations, but some Ukrainian sources reported that Zaluzhny visited nuclear power plant with one purpose: to understand, to speak with scientists, and to give them an answer about the possible consequences of attack against Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So he wanted just to talk with the real scientists who can give him an answer face to face. And as I understand, he got the answers. Of course, those answers haven't been published in the open source, but some Russian and Ukrainian intelligence sources reported that Zaluzhny got the answer he needed, and the answer is that the consequences of attack and some actions against the Zaporizhzhia power plant is not going to be the same as there was the consequences of, let's say, explosion and accident on Chernobyl's power plant, and that the consequences on Zaporizhzhia power plant will be, let's say, 100 times less. So this, from one side, this is a very good piece of news, but from the other side, this is a very bad piece of news. The good thing is that even if somebody is going to make something with the Zaporizhzhia power plant, anyway, we're not going to see such a big consequences. Yes, there are going to be nuclear pollution. It's not my opinion. It's the answer that Zaluzhny received according to the Ukrainian and Russian sources. Maybe it's just speculation. So don't judge me. And he was from one side, the consequences are not going to be so heavy, so that means that this is very good news. And the bad piece of news is that if the consequences are not going to be so bad, that means that Ukrainians or the Russians can do attack and to create a very big media effect without like real consequences. So it's a very tasty piece of cake for both sides, and mainly for the Ukrainians during the upcoming counteroffensive operation. They will not pollute the territory very heavy, but from the other side they can affect the civilians in Russian army and soldiers, and to break the spirit and probably even to force them to step back. So anyway, as I understand, the attack against the Zaporizhzhia power plant is something that we obviously are going to see. And the final updates are coming from Moscow. Today the Ukrainians made an attempt to attack Russian city using the drones, and the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that they managed to shut down the drones. There were a few explosions, the air defense work, and so on. And as a result, that attack wasn't effective, and the Russians managed to destroy. And the Ministry of Defense told us that that was a terrorist attack. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.